This is the video for the cookie mining lab. What we're going to look at is mostly on the data sheet. For this, you're going to have a cookie that we will supply to you, and that's going to cost $10. The size of the cookie, what you're going to do is use a piece of graph paper, and you want to put the cookie on there and trace it. Make sure you trace it pretty dark so you can see that outline. And now once you have that outline done, what you want to do is count up how many squares are in that circle. And if it's a square that's partially in it, just count it as completely one square. Right? So if the line goes partially through that square, count it. And we are going to put that on the size of the cookie. Now we are going to end up using this later, so you don't want to throw this paper out. And as long as you are consistent when you're counting the squares, as if you're consistent now compared to when we do this at the end of the lab, that'll be fine. The mass of the cookie is pretty easy. We will have a weigh boat. Make sure you tear it so it's reading 0 on the scale. You just put the cookie in there, and that's the mass that you are going to write down. Your cookie's going to be different than this one, so get your own mass. At this point, we're going to figure out which tools we want to do. Now here it says keep track of the time once you start mining. That's after we get the tools figured out. You have 3 options for types of tools, and you can take no more than 4 of them. There's a flat toothpick, a round toothpick, and a paper clip that you can bend into a different shape if you want to. Right, so it's no more than 4, whatever combination. You want to figure out which ones you want to use. Write the numbers here. Pay attention to the prices of each. If you break any of the equipment, it's double the rental fee. So pay attention to that. At this point, when you have your tools figured out, whichever ones you want to use, what you want to do is start breaking this cookie apart, not using your fingers. You don't want to touch it. The only things touching it should be whatever tools you use. Doesn't matter which ones. You break it all apart, and the idea is to collect the chips as best you can. The chips represent the ore that you are mining, and that is where you're going to make your profit. So you want as many of the chips as you can get. Right, so that's what's driving your profit there. After you get the chips separated, you want to do what's called the reclamation process, and that is where you try and get that cookie back into its original shape. Right, so I had a circle on there already, and I traced another circle around the cookie crumbs, because what we're going to do at the end is compare how much more space it's taking up now. So that is the reclamation process. Once you are done that reclamation, that is when you stop the timer, because we're going to need that time. So now what we're looking at is the mine and reclamation time cost, because you have to pay your laborers. It's $2 per minute. Just round up to the next whole minute. So that is a cost. The total cost of mining, what you're going to do is take the price of the cookie, which in this case is $10. You're going to add whatever the total equipment costs were, and you are going to add the time costs. All that stuff is going to drive your profit down. The income from the chip sales, that is the ore, you're taking the mass of the chips that you ended up getting the mass of using the balance. Right, you're taking the mass of the chips that we write right here. Remember to tear the weigh boat. You're going to multiply that by 15. That is going to add money to your profit. That's what's going to cause it to go up. Now, overall, the way you figure out profit before reclamation is the value of the chips, which we got here. Subtract out the total cost of mining. That is going to be the profit before reclamation. But you have to take into account the reclamation costs. It's how many extra squares times $1 per square. So when we come back over here, if I brush this away, we can get an idea of how much more space that reclamation took up. This was the original cookie size. Right now, look at how much extra space it took up. When I was putting these crumbs in here, what I tried to do is pat them flat so they are about the same thickness as of the cookie originally. You don't want it just like a big mound. Pat it so it's about the same, like push down on it until it's about the same thickness as the cookie. Now you can count up how many extra squares it took up. And that is what's going to go here, the number of extra squares multiplied by $1. That gives us that number. So the profit overall after reclamation is you're comparing numbers 10 and 11. And then the last thing you could do is figure out the percentage ore in your mine. Remember, percent is a part divided by the whole, so you take the mass of the chips, which was this right here, divide the mass of the cookie, which is up there. You'll get a decimal at that point, multiply it by 100, that will give you percent. And then at that point, you can read through these questions, and there will be a Canvas quiz for you to finish up this lab.